Welcome to the Stream of Consciousness podcast errata. I'm your host, Joel Technical Difficulties Cox. During the taping of our second episode, we had some technical difficulties. The camera phone I used to record this episode stopped recording at 33 minutes. So the second part of the podcast has no video. But the video we did have had very bad lighting. I didn't set the lights up properly, and I know this now. Hopefully I'll find some pictures to put in place of the video for some of it, to liven up the video. The second half of this will be aired next week on the podcast. Well, I guess published. Whatever. Here's the episode, and enjoy.
Hello, and welcome to our
podcast, Stream of Consciousness, I believe is what we're calling it.
Yep.
I am Joey Glen Coco Stout, and this is my producer and great friend Joel Felicia Cox. And today we're going to be talking about, well, whatever. We're going to talk about everything because that's all we do. Because that's what we do best is not know what we're doing.
Actually, let me take my fleece off before we do that.
You get comfortable. I got lots to say. I can fill some time here. Plus, I've had a couple margaritas. We've had a few margaritas. You didn't have any margaritas. I had a few for the both of us, thanks to our good friend Eddie down at Patron in Fox Chapel. For those of you in the area, stop by at Patron Mexican Restaurante in Fox Chapel and see Eddie. Unless you're a bad tipper, in which case don't go there. If you're a bad tipper, don't go to any restaurant because screw you. If you can't afford to tip, then you don't belong in a restaurant. You can't swim, stay out of the pool. If you can't drive a car, don't get behind the wheel. And if you can't tip, then you shouldn't be in a restaurant. Them's the rules.
What if it's left for death situation and you can't drive?
You can't drive? If you are in this lost in the desert scenario where you've been 6 days without water and then you find a car and for some reason the keys are still in it, you don't need my permission at that point, but I'm saying go for it.
Just making sure.
Yeah, I mean, you could do the Bear Giles thing where he drinks his pee.
He's fake.
But I saw him drink his pee and I'm fairly certain that was for real.
He's fake.
You don't think he really drank pee?
No, because you know what he does? He has a hotel out close to where I'm being serious.
I believe that.
This has happened.
I've watched him pee in a bottle and then drink it. I watched that.
Was there a cut?
There may have been. I don't know.
Yes, there's a cut.
There was possibly.
I don't trust that man. I remember an episode that I saw. He's out in the wilderness. He goes, "Here's how you make a bunny trap. Make a little bunny trap. Put the bunny trap out." He goes, "Where it catches the bunny." Didn't catch a bunny. But magically he had a bunny wrap and said, "If I did catch a bunny, here's how it's skinned." No. You do not get to eat the bunny you did not catch.
This is like on Rachel Ray whenever she mixes the ingredients and then sets them aside and then pulls the cupcakes out of the oven. It's the same concept.
You can't do that. Not with a survival show. That does not happen.
No, that's not how you survive. That's have you watched Naked and Afraid yet?
No.
Have you seen this one? I've watched a few episodes. That's not really my favorite show, or it's not our channel that I turn on. If it's not SpongeBob, I don't watch it. So, but my brother was watching the show, and it's literally where they take two random people, they take a guy, they take a girl, and they strip them down to nothing. They're just butt naked, just hairy ass hanging out, and they set them off in some place that's in the middle of a desert or this forest or the wilderness or whatever, and they're allowed to bring one thing with them. Nobody ever brings underwear. They always bring a knife or a pot or a pan or a cowbell or whatever.
I'd bring underwear.
Thing. Yeah, that would be my. I'm gonna make underpants out of leaves. Nobody ever makes clothes out of the things around them either. They build huts and things like that, but they won't take a handful of elephant leaves and tie them together like a Tarzan trunk. Just a mud flap in the front and the back. No, they don't do that. That's unprofessional. Unprofessional.
We're amateur podcasters. So
That's. I'd like to think that we're exceptional amateur podcasters.
I want to be top-seeded amateur podcasters.
Top-seeded? I'm working for that too. I don't know what that means, but I'm in.
You never seen the movie Go?
I have seen, back in 1998. Yes, I watched the movie Go.
Well, in the movie Go, the girl's selling drugs, and she said she's a top-seeded amateur.
Is that a porn star thing?
No.
Then I don't want to do it.
But ever since I've heard that phrase, I've loved the phrase top-seeded amateur.
Top-seeded amateur. That's like being the smartest kid with Down syndrome.
No, not the same.
Well, tomato. Facebook says that. Can we say Facebook? Are we allowed to?
Yeah.
Or I have to call it social media? I don't understand technology or rules. Bernie Sanders could replace President Trump with little-known loophole. Bernie Sanders, this is done. It's over. Like everybody who's hanging on to the fact that we might get a different president instead of Trump is just fooling themselves. Yes, Bernie Sanders could be, if every electoral vote decides that they're going to randomly change their mind and not go with the majority of their particular state and decide to elect Bernie Sanders. Like, I've got just about as much shot of becoming president as Bernie Sanders does. Joe Stout, 2016. Or 2020, I'll take either one.
Probably 2020 since
Well,
2016.
it's not over yet. Like, the Electoral College could still change their mind, which I don't think has ever happened, ever, never, ever. This is the second time, though, that the majority has not won. Even though the majority of people voted for Hillary Clinton, Trump won through the Electoral College. I think the Electoral College is a bunch of crap, personally. But I respect it, and Trump is going to be president. There's no getting in out of this, whether you want, if you're for him, you're against them, whatever, he's going to be president. But everybody keeps posting all these, Hillary could make it, and no, it's over. We've already had the election. It's final. It's done. It's like we could still have macaroni and cheese for dinner when your mom is literally putting spaghetti on the table. It's over. The issue has been settled. But people are still hanging on to that grain of, and this, I believe, I read somewhere, and by read somewhere I mean I watched a video or somebody said it to me, because I don't read anything. I don't read books. I don't read magazines. I don't read the back of a cereal box. And a meme is probably the only thing that I actually legitimately read. But okay, so I heard somewhere that more people did not vote in this election than ever in history. Like almost 50% of people just said not going to go. Like, and not ever in history. I'm fairly certain like Washington got in because like 5 people said that guy. But since then, since like voting has legitimately become a thing, there are more people that did not vote in this election than ever have not voted before. Did I phrase that properly? Something to that effect.
I want to skate this topic by saying I like bacon.
You don't like politics.
No, I do not.
No, you avoid those ones like the plague. I don't care if you like Trump or dislike Trump, but the guy is going to be our president. And voting against and hoping that he does poorly, anybody who doesn't like him, because he definitely has an unfavorable side to him. And I'll say it, I would have rather we voted in a mentally challenged chimpanzee than Trump. I think he's offensive, I think he's derogatory, and I think he's super immature, which I think is the biggest reason why I don't like him. But he is going to be president, and I'm not cheering against the guy who has his finger on the button. But this was, every election has got a lot of controversy around it, but this one was like the one that people got heated over. Like, this is like, it's become more than an election at this point. It is dug so much deeper into our society where people are like avidly like against one another. They're rageful towards one another, or like it's created this other side of society where people have become openly not pacifistic, but like I think it's opened up a lot of eyes of racial tensions and things along those lines. A lot of people now, and I'm not wearing it today, but people are wearing the safety pins as a sign of unity, and I think that's an amazing thing. I hope that becomes huge. I hope that everywhere you go, people just start wearing safety pins all over the place. I hope it becomes like common practice. I hope you see as many people wearing safety pins as you see women wearing earrings. Like, have you heard of this, the safety pin thing? You know about what I'm talking about?
Posted on Facebook.
I did. Okay, well, I didn't know if you actually read anything, because I didn't read it. I just copy pasted off of probably you. Who knows? But it's.
I have a strict rule of posting memes have nothing to do with politics, news, or anything.
I've avoided politics drastically up until, because it's one of those things where you can't say anything without starting a fight with someone. If you say I don't care if somebody agrees with you or disagrees with you. If you mention anything political, people are in an uproar. Like they're angry at the fact that you don't agree with them, and if you say he's going to do this or he's not going to do this, then they're like, what do you mean he's not going to? And they just throw just belligerent facts at you why they like this person or that person. And I wasn't for anyone in this election. I was one of the ones that kind of went, I'm going to wait and see how this works. So I'm going to trust people more intelligent than me to make this decision. And I kind of sat back and just rode the wave. So I can't complain. I'm aware that I am part of the problem. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And I am one of those people that did. I sat back and said, let's see where this goes. I trust that everyone will work this one out. I was one of those ones when Obama was running for president the first time through. I was like, no, not so much. I think this dude's got his head up his ass. I don't like him. I didn't like anything about him. I thought he was well spoken. And I was like, the only reason I was for him was because I was like, it's time we have a black president. It's time we have a president who's not a white male Protestant. We need something other than that to open up the ability for anyone else to step into office, to run for office. And since he ran, now we've had, this is the first female candidate. Even though she didn't win, she was the first female. And that is opened up the world for so many, for 50% of our nation. Women now have this mentality of we can be president. Even though she didn't make it, women are now more capable of, more accepting of. And you as a black guy should, I think,
Crap,
agree.
I'm black.
I hate to be the one to break it to you. We were going to wait until you were 18. Your mother and I were going to tell you then. But I'm sure that in points of life you have seen degrees of prejudice, of biasisms.
Here and there.
And hopefully it's not as common
Nope.
nowadays as it was. Like, I'm sure that if you talk to your dad, he's got a very different point of view on this than you do.
Oh,
He
yes.
grew up in a very different generation, a very different decade where things would be said that were far more so than they are now.
Yep.
People nowadays, there are still prejudiced and racist people. There are still people that don't think that a woman could possibly run the country. There are still people that voted against Obama because he was black. There are still people that don't like Muslims or Latino or anything that's not what they specifically are. And I don't think it's just, I mean, here in America, the majority of people are white. And then when you take into consideration that a lot of the voices that are heard are male, you only really get to see white male perspective on things. And I think that's why there's this mentality of anybody who thinks of racism or prejudicisms thinks it's against black people, Latin people, Muslims. It's against anybody who's not white, male, and Catholic. But I think that throughout the world there's probably a lot of that. If I were to travel to a different part of the world, it's very possible that I could see prejudice coming from a different direction on to me, where you don't see that here because that's not where we live. That's not what we see. That's not what we have. And I think that it exists still throughout the world, but it's drastically reduced. We don't live in a world where people hate. Everybody's learning to love and care and be kind and considerate to each other way, way more than it was 20, 30 years ago. Even when we were growing up, like as little kids, I'm sure that it has changed immensely since then. I remember living in a neighborhood. I grew up in a neighborhood that was predominantly black. Like I was the minority in my neighborhood. But you would hear some of these older guys throw out terms that I won't say, that I just refuse to acknowledge as words even in our society. I've heard these things be said behind people's backs, and even a little bit into my adulthood, I've heard a lot of things that, not a lot, but occasionally you hear something, but it's not anything like it was in time past. And I think that we're moving forward. We're getting a society that is more accepting of different types of people. Gay marriage has become legal. I think throughout the whole U.S., like that's like a settled thing. Like I don't know if it's state by state or how they broke that down.
I think it's state by state.
Is it still state by state? I think it is too. I can't remember, but it's definitely a lot more. It's allowed a lot more than it ever was. It was never allowed in history. I think, was it Hawaii or something was like the first one to. I might have just made that up. I don't know what I'm talking about now. But my point is that a lot more people. It's become more socially acceptable to not be just like me, to not be just like you. People don't look at people the same as they did in times past. You don't look at someone and go, they're not like me, so I don't accept them, like they used to be. So that's I don't even know where I started on that whole conversation. That started with Bernie
Facebook.
Sanders.
Let's see what's on my Facebook.
Let's go. Let's
Hopefully it's something happier.
play the edit card. Because
I want to check my Facebook.
yeah, you come up with it. If you start jotting down some things we can talk about. I can go back to
That's supposed to be stream
tipping
of consciousness. So I'm going to see what's on my Facebook.
We were talking earlier about the whole Joe Biden and Obama memes out there, where it really looks like Joe Biden is in love with Obama, and I love these. I think they are hilarious. Where I just saw one where it was he was holding Obama's hand, like they were giving like each other like an awkward sided handshake, like it was a handshake, but he was behind him on the couch, and he gives him, and the meme is Biden says, or Obama says, "Are you still holding my hand?" And Biden says, "Just keep it going. I'm trying to freak out Pence. Roll with it."
So there's a guy on my Facebook feed. His name is David Lopez.
Any relation to George?
No. He's a Hispanic comic on Facebook. He posts all these funny memes.
Are you sure he's not related to George?
Yes, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Like he had one the other day where him and his buddy were driving down the street and they hit a guy in the street, and it's that cop coming. Oh crap! What are we gonna do? So they took the body, put it on the ground, and his buddy like pointed at it, and he took his camera. He's like, "We're doing the mannequin challenge." He does silly things like that.
That is cool. I didn't hear about this until I think it was yesterday. Is the first I saw it, and I there was like 5 or 6 videos I watched of like. I think it was like Penn State or some football team did one, and then there was another one that was just like this community of people. There's a lot of people where they all. And I didn't know what it was at first. I started watching it. I had the sound off, so I was like, maybe I'm missing something here.
Probably not.
Yeah, I keep my phone on silent all the time, so that way my kids don't go, "What are you looking at? What's going on?" So I watched it, and it was really cool. There was like probably something like 30 people that were all just like dead still, and it was kind of like out of the Matrix, like how they moved the camera, and that was like really cool technology. But this isn't. It's just people just holding still, not blinking as somebody goes through and films them. And I think that's like, I don't know where the whole thing started, but I think it's really cool. Is that for some sort of charity or something? It should be if it's not.
I know that there's a website called Know Your Meme. They usually can tell you where stuff has begun.
Kidding.
Yeah.
I have to check that one out.
So, actually,
I want to talk about the cop too. Did you hear about this cop that the cop in, was it Cranberry Township? Now cops throughout the whole nation, all over the place and daily, there's not a day that goes by that a cop in the United States does not get shot at or shot, and it's always a terrible situation. These are people who literally put their lives on the line, and there was a guy who commented on Twitter or something about the cop, and he basically said "F that cop," the cop that got shot. And
not cool.
Exactly my point. Like, you don't have to love the cops. Maybe you don't like them because you got harassed one time or because you're a drug dealer or whatever. But these are the people that literally go out. They're putting their lives on the line to protect us, to serve, to keep our communities safe. You maybe have had a bad experience or you ran across one D-bag cop, but that does not mean that all cops are terrible people. And to have that kind of animosity just blindly towards a cop is, I think, absurd. But the story for me actually goes a little bit deeper, because the cop that was shot, when I was delivering furniture, I was driving the truck. We were going through Cranberry Township, and I got pulled over in the truck. And they do just random DOT inspections where they pull you over and they look over your truck and they check the tires and the brake and
Department of Transportation.
Department of Transportation. I got Department of Transportation inspected, and so the cop. They look through everything from if you have any litter on your dashboard, if you have if your fire extinguisher has to be up to date, etc., etc., etc. There's literally probably 1,000 things they can look over. They can find They can go until they find something wrong. They can make sure everything is strapped in the back of the box. All the whatever merchandise you're moving has to be secured properly and in the right place, and so on and so forth. So this cop pulls me over and walks up, wants my driver's license, insurance, registration, and you carry a DOT physical card saying that I am allowed to drive this giant truck. So I give him all that information, and he goes up front, he checks the headlights and the turn signals and the horn and the blah, 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 and he's telling me to turn on lights, and he walks, and he does like a once through, and he checks my brakes, and it took a little bit of time. But he didn't open up the back, and he didn't dig through the front of my truck. He didn't look at a huge percent of the things that he probably could have. And he was very polite, very nice, very kind the whole way through, very considerate man. When I was all said and done, he had me step out to show me one thing. There was a bottle that was wedged in between, and he's like, "That's something typically you get fined for." But he let it go. He let it slide. He goes, "I'm sure wasn't yours. You probably didn't put it there." And I was like, "Well, actually," and he goes, "It wasn't yours. You didn't put it there." And I was like, "Oh, I get it. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, yeah, not mine." He shook my hand, thanked me, had a great day, went on his way. I went on my way. We finished up our day. The cop who DOT'd me was the cop who got shot. It was the same cop. And I didn't know it until the guy who I worked with, I ran into him, and he said, "Hey, isn't this the guy that pulled us over that day?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "That's the one that got shot." And so not only did this cop lose his life in the line of duty, protecting people, he was, in fact, from personal experience, I can tell you that he is a very nice guy. Was, unfortunately, a very nice guy.
Sorry
Just
to hear that.
a super kindly man. That he wasn't one of those a-hole cops that you see out and about that like are out wearing. He wasn't one of those southern cops with the shiny sunglasses, nightstick, and colored folk or anything. He wasn't that guy. He wasn't even one of the ones that was trying to chase down the Dukes of Hazzard. He was like a good guy.
Osco
He was
train.
and he lost his life in the line. And then there's people out there that still say these negative things in the light of this. I mean, like, if you want to say F the cops, fine, that's not okay, but do it. Like, you are given that right. You have the freedom of speech. You have that will to do that. But this guy directly at this one specific cop, F that cop. And he didn't say F. He said it, and it was blatantly directed towards that one individual guy, who was a really nice guy to begin with, and he had just lost his life. Like, his family saw that. His wife and his kids look at this and go, "This guy hates daddy or their husband," or I don't know if he had a family. I'm assuming or presuming he did.
The one thing I've learned is when you have the internet and you don't have an identity, or even you have a remote identity where they give you your name but you're nowhere near the person, people have the nerve to say a lot of things.
Yeah.
And like one of my favorite stories, I worked at a recycling company and we dealt with people on eBay. And occasionally you got these people who buy stuff and they try and scam you. This guy bought a laptop and he decided that he was going to sell his laptop. The guy he sold the laptop to found something wrong with it. So instead of him taking care of it, he tried to get us to give him a refund. Got very belligerent, very angry, very nasty through email. My coworker was like, "I'm sick of this crap." So he called the guy directly and said, "Hey, is this so and so? Yeah. Did you do this? Da da da. What up? You want to fight with me?" Dude was like speechless for like 10 seconds. And my boss came running down the steps, grabbed the phone off him, and like tried to smooth things over with the customer. So he heard him start up with this guy. But the point is, when people get called out on what they're doing, they tend to back down.
Oh, everybody's more muscular when they're not face to face. Everybody is, and I, for a while, I actually worked for the cable company, and it was amazing, like, the phone muscles that people get.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they call you up, and they're like, "You SOBs, I do you," and I'm like, "Me? Like, what did I do? I just answered the phone. I've been on hold for 10 minutes. No, you haven't. You had to press 2 to get an operator. Like, you were not on the, but, like, people get, like, angry over the phone. And these are the same people that whenever, if you cut them off in traffic, they're like, "Oh," but then if you're sitting beside them, they're like, "It's all cool, it's all right." Mm-hmm. I'm not going to let anybody else in front of me in traffic, well, except for that guy.
Yeah.
And that guy. And that guy. So it is. And it's a shame because I think that some people are intimidated to speak their mind in front of, when they're face to face with something. Nobody wants to have an argument face to face. But when you have that outlet to express how you feel, it's never like, "I had such a great experience." It's always, it's this fist shaking, angry.
The problem is, people want to voice their mind, but they don't want to have any consequences. And people don't always go, "Hey, maybe I shouldn't do that."
Yeah, there are times where you have to stop and consider, like, this isn't just a matter of resolving your issue or getting justice for how you felt that you were mistreated. Sometimes somebody's job is on the line. Like, there are occasions where you have to stop and go, is somebody going to get in trouble for this? Like, maybe you're just exaggerating the truth, or maybe you're flat out lying. But when you make this up, if you say the person at this position didn't tell me these were, or didn't let me know this, or I was not aware of because they specifically said, you could be getting that person in trouble with their boss. This might be
Exactly.
somebody who is, maybe their boss is having a bad day and needs to make an example out of somebody, and the guy who just had a kid and his wife hasn't been working, and he's down on his luck, and his car broke down, and etc etc etc, and now you just made him look like an a-hole, and his boss is going to rip him a new one, and you're going to get this guy either fired or written up or who knows what over the fact that you went into, you didn't get the right brakes for your car at Pep Boys.
Mm-hmm. The thing I know when I we go to restaurants, you'll see like stuff going on and like people's food come out wrong, and you're like, it's not always the waiter's fault. Sometimes the cook just doesn't pay attention.
And I worked in a restaurant. I've had more jobs than I can count, but I worked in a restaurant for a very long time, and I will say the one thing is, if food comes out wrong, if you order something and it doesn't come out the right way, don't hesitate to say something. Nobody's offended by that. Nobody along the line is gonna throw a fit because you asked for your burger without cheese and it came out with cheese. Say something. If you don't bring attention to it, it can't be fixed. But there's a point where you have to say, hey, this isn't right, versus going home and taking that survey and saying, worst service I've ever had, and this was terrible, and blah 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 blah. There's so many gears to that machine that just because your burger had cheese on it doesn't mean that your server was a terrible server, doesn't mean that the hostess wasn't really sweet to you whenever they sat you down, doesn't mean that the cooks weren't busting their humps in the back trying to get your food out on time while the table next to you is complaining that their food's taken an hour when they've only been sitting there for 20 minutes. Like, there's nothing wrong with going into a restaurant and saying, this isn't the way I ordered this, can we solve this issue?
Exactly.
That's perfectly fine, and nobody gets offended by it. It's just a matter of, let me get this squared up for you, let me fix this, let me get it back on track. But I understand how some people just socially are not comfortable having that conversation. You've broken out of your shell quite a bit, but if you look back to like our college days, you were one of those people that were like, I'll just eat it.
Mm-hmm.
You were definitely that person. And unless I was there and you'd go, Joe, can you tell them that my you wouldn't even ask me. I would just presume that you wanted me to speak up, because I was not afraid to talk my mind. But there's nothing wrong with that. It wasn't that you were doing anything wrong. You just weren't comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But now in your your maturity and such, you now would say.
That is true.
But you don't throw a fit or kick and fuss. We're not children. We're not babies.
I actually
We're
remember
like adults.
one time in college, a buddy of mine was trying to get classes taken care of for graduate, and he went into the whatever department he had to go to. He was talking to the secretary, and he was getting screwed, and they knew he was getting screwed. And they were all freaking out because they knew he was getting mad. He goes, no. I know you're not at fault. I want your boss's name. I want to know who's in charge. I'm going to go yell at them. You're just here doing your job.
Yeah, I like you. We're on the same page. And I'll tell you, that's another thing too, is you could sometimes resolve, you could not, mostly all of the time, you can resolve an issue better by calmly and politely getting that person on your side, as opposed to going, you did wrong, fix this.
Exactly.
If you go, this isn't right, how can we make this better? Can you help me with this?
Exactly.
More often than not, people will respond better to that. My mom used to have a saying, you catch more flies with sugar than you do vinegar, or something to that effect. I don't know, she drank a lot. But
one thing I learned at a lot of my jobs, whenever I'm not sure about stuff, instead of just flat out saying, hey, this is wrong, I don't know what to do, I would say, hey, here's what happened. I'm not sure how I would resolve this. How would you do this?
Yeah, except for half the time your bosses don't know how to do your job. So I don't know your bosses now. You're pretty happy with your job.
My boss is awesome right now.
Is he watching the podcast? Is that why you said that?
No,
is she watching?
She's probably not.
She doesn't know how to work
but
technology.
I do love my job. No, she does. She knows her job.
You just like her. Just get along well with her.
This is the best job I've ever had. I'm not gonna lie.
That's.
But yeah, it's amazing what happens when you say, hey, I don't know what's going on. How would you do this? What would you recommend? I think one of my favorite things is when we go to restaurants and you know what to get. You go to the waitress, what's your favorite?
I do that everywhere we go. Every time. I do one of two things, and I was actually just telling some of my buddies about this at work, how every place we go into, I have two go-tos. I either wait for the waitress or waiter to come by, and I go, what's your favorite thing? And they're always really hesitant. They're always like, I like a lot. What do you like? And I'm like, no. What if you're on break? and you have to order something. What is it you order? And then they say whatever. And before they're even done telling me what it is, I say, I'll take that. Do I or do I not do that?
You do.
I do that everywhere we go. And I've tried so many new foods, and I've tried things that I probably never would have ordered, but they say it, and I go, and then by the time I get it, we went into the burger place, and the lady was like, the chicken sandwich or something. It was a chicken, yeah, it was a chicken sandwich. And I'm like, went into a burger joint. Like, the place is known for burgers. That was your bachelor party, which we need to talk about your wedding in Vegas a little bit too. I don't know if we'll have time for that today, but either do that, or the other thing is whenever you and I go out to eat.
I was gonna mention that.
We always do. I always go, what am I going to have today, Joel? And I pick what you're going to have, and you pick what I'm going to have. And usually we get that look like, are you two on a date?
I remember the one time we went out to that cafe, Grand Central, out in
Yes,
Moon,
yes.
and we tried to do that, and the waitress was like, what is going on?
Well, that's because I told her you're my chocolate lover in the night.
Yeah, that'll do it.
I said that to her. I think I called you my cocoa goddess. So don't tell Jonesy. He will be so mad.
You know what we should do one of these days?
Now I'm terrified. What should we do one of these days?
We should get Jonesy together, and all three of us do this.
That would be hilarious. That would be great. We do get some really funny looks whenever we do that. Like, people really kind of, and they're always like really polite. Like, nobody ever
What's even
questions
better
or says anything.
is when the waitress comes by and go, he will have this.
And that's where we'll end this episode for now. If you want to find out more about what's happening in Vegas, tune in next week. If you have any questions, comments, criticism, go to our website. Thank you for watching. Tune in next week. Bye.